Hey everybody, what is going on? I am Maximus Rex and this is Big Baby Reviews. Today is Wildcard Sunday where we look at things a little bit different from our regularly scheduled reviews during the week. So today we're looking at Batman 471, cover dated November 1991 for a few reasons. First of all, this is a one and done story, so that's always fun. It's a memorable story for me. I read this as a young teenager and it really hit me in the feels. And it's drawn by NORM BREYFOGLE, who is an amazing artist who I feel never exactly got his due and never hit the heights of success that maybe I feel like he should have. He was, very well known as the Batman artist in the late 80s and early 90s, and never really went much higher or past that. And as far as popularity and being a hot artist, but he definitely had the skills for it. I think this issue shows it. Also, he's inking himself here, so that's always great. He was in prior issues on Detective and Batman. He was inked by, I think it's Steve Mitchell. I'm not 100% sure. I'd have to look that up, but someone else. And it didn't affect the artwork. I feel like his pencils were very tight, so there's not a huge disconnect between when he inks himself and when someone else inks him. But I always feel that an artist inking himself, you always get the purest version of his artwork and what he intends for people to see on the page. So that's why I like this one. Kind of a foreboding, scary shot of Killer Croc down here. Killer Croc, I found out, is a pretty recent, well, okay, maybe not today, but back in November 1991. Fairly recent villain. He was first appeared in Batman comics in 1983. So I guess it can attest to his design and some of his staying power that he was actually featured in the Batman animated series in the 90s, only just not even 10 years after his introduction, where most of the other villains were kind of the classic introduced in the 40s and maybe in the 50s kind of characters, right? So he kind of stands out on that cartoon in that way. His design also changes a lot from artist to artist. So, you get varying interpretations of him. Sometimes he seems more human. Sometimes he seems more animal. Depends on the storyline, right? Starting with the cover, art-wise, I love this idea of using the Batman silhouette as kind of a design element for the skyline. And I don't know about throwing the eyes in there, but I mean, it's it kind of gives that sense of Batman's watching you, right? You're just watching over Gotham City. So I think it's still a good idea to do that. And what you get here is kind of a breakdown of the underground of Gotham, and that's going to obviously relate to the storyline once we crack her open. So let's have a look inside. So right away, we're getting like some really cool stuff from NORM BREYFOGLE, and the reason why I think his art is so awesome, right? So if I'm not mistaken, this is Killer Croc kind of having a dream here where, they're probably trying to electronically lobotomize him in Arkham Asylum. Batman obviously probably put him in there, so he's kind of represented as a demon here. And I just like the way the foreshortening here, the way things are very dynamic and exaggerated with NORM BREYFOGLE, but he still has more of a classic kind of anatomy and illustrative design sense. I've always said I feel like there's crossover between some of the things he chooses to do and put in his comics and Todd McFarlane. Surprisingly enough, not that there's styles are that similar, but there's just few elements that I'll point out in this comic that I feel where they have a bit of synergy and are similar. So yeah, let's move on. Alan Grant does the script, NORM BREYFOGLE does the art, or BREYFOGLE, correct me once again, I'm awful with these names. Adrian Roy colors and Todd Klein letters. So yeah, again, this kind of demonic, exaggerated version of Batman I think is pretty cool. That'll come in and inspire, later iterations, maybe like, in Batman Begins, when the Scarecrow gets sprayed by his own fear gas, Batman ends up looking kind of demonic like this. It's a common trope, but I think BREYFOGLE maybe is one of the best at doing it. And, Killer Croc in his dream here. Obviously, the colors should clue you into the fact that this is not necessarily like a in reality sequence or in continuity sequence. It is a dream. Do like this shot of the demonic Batman kind of worried that Killer Croc is like got his hands around his neck, but like, this is basically a splash page, but you've got a panel here, you got a panel here, right? He breaks it up with the figures to kind of create panels within a splash page. His design sense is just amazing, and everything's just always so dynamic all throughout. This is just a great issue to showcase his artwork, I think, and how skilled he is at expressions, right? So anger, I don't know, pensive is how I describe that right there. But all throughout this issue, you'll see that he's a master at the facial expression, and especially some of the stuff we're going to see with Batman that I'll point out. He always had a good way of really driving home the point of what Batman's emotions were, and all the characters really. So he's a very well-rounded artist who still uses some comic book elements, some bombast, some dark shadows and stuff to make the comics more dynamic and interesting. So yeah, very solid artist and a storyteller as well. And his pages are interesting. Look at these, panel designs. There's some overlap. There's some open panels, using every trick in the book here. So he's woken up, and what we find is that Killer Croc is basically living underground in what is a fallout shelter with a bunch of other people here. And this lady here, when he's having his dreams, she helps him calm down by singing him the Hush Little Baby Don't Say a Word song, right? Which I guess Killer Croc maybe missed out on some parental love as a kid, so she's kind of filling that void for him there. So Killer Croc, not necessarily in this issue represented as a bad guy, right? Just kind of as a tortured kind of figure, or in this case, he's kind of, as we'll find out in the issue, these people's savior, or at least helper. So Batman comes in, and like I said, he just, he seems to me to mix like design elements with like the Neil Adams Batman, right? So he's got the long ears, the distinct silhouette, the way he plays around with the cape all throughout is always great. And like I said, he makes it huge, and that's where I kind of see a bit of resemblance with Todd McFarlane. We'll see further depictions of Batman where the cape is really pretty cool. This bit of storytelling is fun too, where, they're looking for thieves basically who are stealing things, and Batman says, see these marks, this has been moved recently. So he's pointing to the snack machines that have been slid in and out, right? And doesn't even ask for help. Batman just starts lifting, and this is where, like I say, Breyfogle's mastery of anatomy, all his muscles now are tensing up and are pumped up and stuff. I think that works really well, like when a bodybuilder's all kind of tense and posing on a stage of a bodybuilding competition, right? As you're using your muscles, it makes sense that they would tense up. And again, that expression, he's really having to put a lot of effort into this here. And even the way he inks the side of it here adds to that kind of chaotic energy that's going on here. So they find a door back there. And of course, well, Batman's going to have to go and investigate that, right? And like always, like coming into frame in interesting ways. Like he's flipping here. And just the movement of that going towards the Batmobile, I think is great. So, during this period, even though it was the gritty 90s, they brought back Ace, the Bat Hound, right? In kind of a different form. Doesn't wear a bat mask or anything. Just basically Batman has a dog now. Just a regular dog, right? Who does help him out in some instances, like in this issue. And here's a shot of, occasionally Breyfogle will just black out the whole kind of Batman mask and silhouette. And that also, to me, feels a little bit like Todd McFarlane and the shape of the eyes as well. I wonder if sometimes McFarlane took the shape of these triangular eyes that he does on Spawn from Norm Breyfogle, or Fogel. So in communication with Tim and Alfred, and basically, letting Batman know about the all the underground kind of dwellings and tunnels and stuff, and the layout of that, so that Batman's not going in blind, right? And for some reason, because he's a hound and he has a good nose, he's bringing the dog on the mission here. Love this panel here. Just kind of a crazy perspective in the sewers there, but really well done. Breyfogle, another artist who doesn't skimp on the backgrounds and does a really good job at creating evocative kind of set pieces, which I love. So Batman has a piece of cloth from Killer Croc, and that's why Ace has been brought around the Hound to sniff him out down here in the sewers. And this is like the kind of sequence that, makes you sympathize with Killer Croc, right? Where he's helping all these people underground, helping them move their stuff around, and kind of becoming their protector, right? That's basically what they're hinting at, and creating kind of a relationship with these people underground, so that later on, when the bad news comes in, again, you feel sympathetic for Killer Croc. It's one of the more memorable aspects of this issue is the fact that Killer Croc is not really in any way depicted as the villain. It's almost as if, to a certain extent, Batman is. And basically walk into what seems like an underground section of Gotham that was built over. Kind of reminds me of when I visited Seattle. If you go to Seattle, I don't know if you know this, but back in the late 1800s, Seattle used to flood every day. They built it in like near the water, and for some reason, almost every day it would flood. And there was a major fire in the late 1800s, maybe early 1900s, and they just decided after the fire to build all of Seattle one kind of floor up. So if you ever visit Seattle, you can go visit the underground. It's like, going 100 years, 120 years in the past. And storefronts and windows are still there. Old typewriters, old bikes and stuff. It's a very kind of strange affair, but really fun to visit. And yeah, if you didn't know, all of Seattle downtown is built one floor up over top of what used to be 100 years ago, the actual ground floor of Seattle. And again, I was talking about the expressions, right? So we're going to get more of that. So I'm going to point it out, like, the surprise on Batman's face here. Like, it's slightly cartoonish and exaggerated, but it just works really well. You always know what's going on with Batman and how he's feeling when Norm Breyfogle's drawn it. And then we find basically this kind of, scared dog here that's being kind of bullied and attacked by these rats. And of course, Ace comes in and saves the day, just like Batman would. So Ace is kind of the Batman for other dogs here. And I just love these little details, like the dog now, really rubbed up against Ace and so happy that Ace helped him out and saved him. Batman's look of surprise once again, I guess, of finding a dog down here. And again, these shots, Killer Croc really humanizing him. And like I said in this issue, he's not the villain. He's not the bad guy. He's not doing dastardly things. He's actually, for once, helping other people. So it's unfortunate, like I said, with the end that's going to happen in this comic here. So Batman finally comes into the room where all these people are, right? And again, somewhat, a shot of Batman where I don't know if he's surprised, but he's obviously trying to not be too menacing for this kid here and scare him off. But of course he's scared anyways, right? Because look how he's dressed, right? And then of course Killer Croc is going to interpret Batman coming down there as some sort of attempt to bring him back to Arkham, as we saw in that dream sequence earlier on. So attacks Batman. Batman is surprised once again. Loved that expression on his face. And all throughout, Killer Croc now not very happy, so his expression has changed. And Batman as well, once Killer Croc pushes Ace the dog up against the wall here, Batman gets really angry and the fight is on, right? Look at all these great dynamics though. Just the slanted panels. His design sense is great. This is more of a calm kind of sequence, and then all of a sudden when Croc comes in, the panel breaks up a little bit. The panels are angular, right? That sense of chaos. Just really good stuff from Norm Breyfogle. Great storytelling and great dynamics. So the fight continues on. Batman's kind of at the mercy of Killer Croc here, but of course Ace once again comes in to save the day. And this just dynamic punch here, the kind of the Kirby trick where, whenever you're hitting something, you stop drawing and you just kind of have a flash of light, really helps, again, highlight the dynamics of the movement and the punch here. And unfortunately, that punch misses Batman and, creates a weakening of the walls here, right? And Batman actually says it. Let me just find the right section here. Yeah, he says, "Get these people out of here now." No, not this time, I swear, I'm not trying to trick you. They're opening the new water tunnels tonight, and this wall's so rotten, it's like paper. And of course, that's what's going to lead to Croc's demise in this issue. So Batman sees some of the water coming in, holding up the wall here, kind of calls Killer over to maybe help him out, which both of them hold the wall. Can't hold it long. Obviously, the water's going to break through. Just enough time for these people to get up the stairs and to safety, right? There's one lady who's having issues, right? And Killer Croc says, "You got to save her." And he's like, "I can't leave you to do this alone." And he's like, "Help her out," So Killer Croc is left on his own while Batman, just this great swooping, jumping motion of Batman here, I think is great. And this, again, kind of mirroring the shot of Batman pushing the vending machine earlier on. Killer Croc putting all his effort into holding up this wall here, right? Of course, you're not going to, fight off a raging wall of water, so a torrent. So unfortunately, what's supposed to happen does happen. Killer Croc gets whooshed by the water here, off into the tunnels. none of us could have survived in that. So Batman is saying maybe Killer Croc is dead, but maybe Killer Croc survives. None of us could have survived, but maybe he did, right? And these people, unfortunately, they think he's dead to save us. He died to save us. Hush, little baby, don't say a word. And she starts to sing that song again for Killer Croc. So like I said, just kind of a very emotional end to that. And, you know, when I read this as a kid, I didn't know Killer Croc was, you know, a reoccurring character or anything like that. So I genuinely thought he was dead, and it kind of bummed me out when I read this comic. And it's one of the reasons why this comic is memorable to me. Rarely felt that kind of emotional weight in a Batman comic like the one we feel in this issue here. And they all start singing in together, right? So kind of a sad moment. And I love this shot here of, you know, the silhouette of Batman basically forming the panel, right? Some, you know, dark shadowed shot of them kind of looking down into the area where Killer Croc was swept away. And again, you know, kind of hinting at in a kind of sub-contextual way or symbolic way, you know, the shadow of the bat, you know, in this case, maybe was not used. Batman's, you know, strength and powers, or not powers, but deductive skills, all of that, you know, his want to save and help people maybe didn't work in this instance here. And I feel like the shadow of the bat kind of falls over Killer Croc kind of symbolically, and is just a good choice for the end of this issue, and something we rarely see in sequential comics, the end. So it's just a one-shot issue. You can read the whole story all at once. All right, well, there you go, guys. That was my review of Batman 471 with art by Norm Breyfogle. If you're still watching and you're still subscribed, I really do appreciate it. Thank you so much. If you are watching but you're not subscribed, please do so below. It's really easy, quick for you, and it really helps the channel out, helps us grow, helps get us out there to other people who are into comic books, just like we are. So everyone, again, thank you so much for watching, and have yourselves an awesome Sunday.
Like, subscribe, like, subscribe.
King Comics presents Big Baby, Volume 1, Issues 1 to 13, 204 pages of story and art. King Comics also presents Star Crasher one-shot, 32 pages, cosmic sci-fi surrealist adventure. You can find these fine comics at KINGCOMICS.CA, at MaximusRex13 on Instagram, or on Facebook, MaxRex or Big Baby.